we are back. Welcome to the SoapBox, where people who work, volunteer, and care about recovery tell us who they are and what they're most passionate about. My name is Rich Jones, RN, and I represent restorativelifemanagement.com and the home site, secondstarts.com. That's the number 2 NDSTARTS.com. Today, my guest is Jay Hall, and I want to remind everybody it's Jay Hall, not Jay or anything like that. Jay Hall. And
That's it.
Which I really, that drew me. Jay is an author, a podcaster, and educator with over 15 years of experience in higher education. And he is the host and producer of the Okie Bookcast. We're going to get him to explain, tell us exactly what that is. Jay, I had you on because normally I work with people in sort of the realms of recovery. But to me, a huge part of recovery is prevention. You know what I mean? And I think it's the most left out part of recovery is prevention. And when I think about that, and I saw you, I was talking about somebody who does something with, helps out with young minds, and, has an eye toward being a father and a person who, really influences people in a positive way. So I'm glad to have you on, Jay.
I'm excited to be here, Rich.
Hello. I'm glad to have you. Jay, I start off every show by asking my guests to give me the Cliff Notes version of himself, but don't be too cliffy. Let us have it. I want to know about Jay and tell me what we do. And we'll get into the specifics of some of the books and things later. But Tell me about Jay, how you got there and what your idea was and what you were trying to accomplish by writing the books and even what you do in your profession.
So professionally, I am the Dean of Social Sciences at Oklahoma City Community College. So I work with about 9,000 students a semester or a year, a semester, just helping them take the next step in their academic journey. And it's something I'm passionate about. You talk about the prevention and helping folks move forward in their lives. And I think education is the key to that. I think it's transformational for individuals, for families, for communities. And so I love working in a space. We're an open access institution, which means anybody who wants to try can come and give it a shot. And my division in particular, but I think across our college, we are strongly dedicated to helping students meet them wherever they are and help move them forward. And I love being a part of that. In the rest of my life, I am a dad. I'm a husband. My wife and I have been married 34 years this week. I have 4 kids, 2 kids in law that we feel like are our kids as well, and 2 grandkids as of this week as well. My daughter had her first son on our anniversary, so that worked out pretty cool for us.
Okay. I saw the picture.
There you go. Yeah. So Adler's here and he's doing great. She's doing great. All is well. I'll be going to see them in just a little bit, actually, when we get done here. But I also, mentioned the podcast. We can get into more of that later. I am an author. So my goal in writing and in a lot of the kind of extra things that I do in my life is to encourage and shine a spotlight on people that might not always be seen. So that's part of why the show is what it is. But in my writing, what I'm really trying to do is encourage people. And so I have a book for young dads. I have a book for incoming college students. And the idea, the big idea behind the dad's book, as you were kind of talking about where it came from, when I found out that my son was going to have his son, there were a lot of things that I hoped he knew that he'd learned from being my kid for however many years at that point, 25, 26 years, that weren't exactly the kinds of things that you always articulate, say out loud, but model. And so it started as a series of letters to him. Just here's some things I hope you know. And I realized not only was he having a child, but lots of his friends who we had kind of adopted through the years were having kids. Some of the young men in our lives in the church, in the gym, were having kids. And I thought, well, if this is good for him, it might be good for everybody. And so it really is just, it's 10 things that I think are significant for us to have in our lives as dads so that we can pass them on to our kids. And that's where it came from.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to pass them things down to us too in a little bit here for a second. So Jay, okay. And that's exactly the kind of things I want to hear from you. That's one of the reasons why, I found you so interesting. Jay, since we got on to the subject of the book and the 10 things, kind of paraphrase and go through some of them things, because I know those were the kind of things that were top on your mind in
Mhm.
this mission you had. So talk to me about that.
So I come from a faith perspective. I am ordained pastor, worked in ministry for a lot of years before I went into education. And so that's my worldview. That's how I
Mhm.
come at everything, but particularly how I come at fatherhood. And so the idea was, what are things that I think young men need to have in their lives that come from that faith perspective? And so one of the big ideas in the
Okay.
book is that God gives us what we need for everything, including being a dad.
Right.
So some of the things we talk about, love and joy and gratitude and service, but these things that we think about, we know that we know we should be loving, right? That's not
Right.
shocking to anybody.
Right.
But talking about what that looks like, thinking about where that comes from, because there are I don't know about you, Rich, but there are days I wake up and I don't feel terribly loving. I want to be selfish. I want to take care of myself. I don't want anybody around sometimes. But we have a source, right, in
Mm.
our life in God that allows us to have a store of loving even when we don't
Right.
feel it in ourselves, right? We don't have to we don't have to work that up in and of ourselves. We have a place to go for that. So it really was so the book talks about what that looks like, what it looks like to develop that in our lives. And then I also really wanted it to be a very, very practical book. And so with each of these chapters, we talk about these big ideas, we talk about where they come from, but then we also talk about what a dad can do sitting around the table to
Okay.
help their kids begin to think about this. So like when we talk about gratitude,
Mhm.
just encouraging kids and modeling being thankful, right?
Yeah.
Thanking mom for the things that she does, thanking the kids for the things that they do. And that was always kind of an interesting dynamic in our house when we were thanking 4-year-olds for doing whatever they were supposed to be doing. But it was important that they see that we're thankful people, right? That this is what we do.
Right.
We share, we express gratitude every opportunity we get. So it's designed just to really be like, sit down, read this chapter. It's about 8 pages. There's some practical things you can do, and then go on and do something else, because we know that dads are busy. We know that moms are busy too, right? Young parents have more to do than they can possibly accomplish in any given day. So handing somebody a 300-page book of here's all the rules and the things you need to do did
Mhm.
not seem terribly practical to me.
Right.
So it's designed to be, I say simple, it's designed to be things that can be done without a whole lot of extra effort, right? That just
Mhm.
as we're building
Got
these
it.
things into our lives, we begin to
Got it.
build them into the lives of our
Got
kids.
it. Got it. Got it. Oh, and I again, I want to reiterate this. And I've been stomping on this my soapbox for a while, especially this whole week I've spent talking to other healthcare managers and some physicians and stuff. And if I go down saying one thing again, I'm going to say things like you're doing, or this the prevention, the getting out in front of things, and they're easy to
Mhm.
do. Uh, it's I'm not going to say it's free, but it's right there and it's accessible to anyone. You could do the simple things like you were doing, just laying down the basics, and how much they will go to covering that back end. We've got to start working on. We're doing a poor job of the back end's killing us. Okay, the back end's killing us. So maybe we ought to start thinking about the front end a little bit. Hey Jay, I want to jump on some of your soapbox points and let you riff on this. You did a little bit, but I really want to give you an opportunity
Sure.
to talk about this. And you say to me, God knew exactly what He was doing when He put your family together and made you a father. I know when you become a father, and I had that experience myself. You know, it's a no man's land. And we say, especially for men, I like the old joke. For women, the natural instincts kick in. They seem to have a feel for this. And I say for the men, nothing kicked. Nothing kicked in. So tell me how your faith interacted with you and got you, prepared for this mission, whether it was the beginning or if you eased into it.
Well, I think for all of us, it's easing into it. Although sometimes it's not easing; it's like being dropped into it, and here we
Yeah.
go. Because when my first son was born, I didn't have a clue. I mean, I had great parents. I had great parents around me that I got to kind of watch and model, but I'd changed exactly one diaper in my life. And my wife had a real hard time. So the first night they wheel him in and say, here he is. And she's, racked in bed, and I'm trying to change a diaper by myself. And that didn't go great. Um, so I think you talk about instincts kicking in. For me, the instinct that kicked in was not so much care, it was protection, right? That I've got somebody else in my life besides my wife, myself, that I've got to take care of. And in what's different from me and my wife is this little guy can't take care of himself at all. He is completely helpless. He can do nothing. And in that moment, you realize just the weight of the responsibility, right? That I've got to, I'm responsible for making sure that he's taken care of physically, that he's taken care of emotionally, spiritually, all of these different things that I thought I was maybe ready for. And then the reality, it's like everybody has a plan until they meet the enemy. And now, not that he's the enemy, but you have this moment of, oh gosh, what am I doing? Right. And I just distinctly remember even that first night, okay, God, this is you and me, and we're going to figure this thing out, but it's going to have to be you with me because I don't know what I'm doing. And he needs me to know what I'm doing, right? He needs me to be this great dad. And there was a sense even then that developed over time. God didn't mess up. Like, God knew what he was doing when he gave me the kids he gave me. And there's something about who they are. There's something about who I am. There's something about who I'm becoming and they are becoming that worked together. And I think sometimes dads look around their family and think, I'm the odd man out. What am I doing here? None of this makes a lot of sense. And I just, again, God doesn't mess up, right? He didn't make a mistake when he gave you those kids, when he put you in that position in your family. He just wants us to lean on him to accomplish what needs to get accomplished.
Very excellent. Talk to me about and mend this into as your idea of intentionality in these things, and how what you do to drive yourself in that direction, and be intentional about what we're talking about.
I think showing up in the lives of our kids is the most significant thing we can do. Being who we are, bringing what we've got. And I think sometimes we don't feel like we've got enough or that we know what we're doing. But I think just the intentional presence. I think about my dad, who worked in the car business in the 80s in Oklahoma City, which meant that he went to work at about 8 o'clock in the morning and sometimes came home at 11, 12 o'clock at night. And I have two brothers. We were involved in sports. I did a ton of music stuff. I was in band and choir and musicals and all that kind of thing. And my dad showed up every time. Even if it meant he had to leave work, he had to go, stay later, but he would come, he would sit through these musicals that he had no framework for, understanding of. It was not, and he'd much rather have gone and sat at 4 hours of baseball games because that made sense to him. But he was there. And I don't know at the time, maybe as I got a little bit older, I realized what a gift that was. But it was just, he was around, right? He was always there. He worked a ton, so we didn't see him a lot during the week, but we knew if we had something, he was going to show up. And there's something about knowing that your father and your mother, but we're talking about dads, that your father is prioritizing you in that way. So for me, I have lived a very privileged existence as an adult. I've worked in jobs where I could walk out whenever I needed to and just say, hey, I'm going to the ballpark, or I'm going to a swim meet, or I'm going to a choir concert. I'll be back in a couple of hours, and nobody blinked. And it didn't cost me extra time. It just was, I was able to do that. So for me, it was, I'm going to show up for all these things, but also I made a commitment to myself and to my kids, although I never said it to them out loud, that if they asked me to do something with them and there was any way on earth I could do it, I was going to say yes. So sometimes that looked like shooting baskets in the driveway with my son who was working on basketball. Sometimes that looked like, taking extra BP after baseball practice with my son who's a baseball player, or taking my daughter to the bookstore because she's an author now, and reading was a thing that she and I did together. But it was, whatever, if I could, and most of the time was there. It was just choosing it. And sometimes that was inconvenient. Sometimes it was not the thing that I would choose to do. When it's 100 degrees outside, I don't want to go shoot baskets, but here we go.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's being intentional. And again, I recognize the privilege in that. I know that there are dads who are separated because of family separation, because of jobs, because of deployments.
Right.
But there are opportunities, right? There are ways
Right.
through FaceTime, through letters, through whatever, that we can still be intentional and show up in the lives of our kids. And I think it's really important that we think about that, because life is busy and there are 1,000 other things calling for our attention. And if we're not intentional about it, probably not going to do it in the way that our kids need us to.
Exactly. Jay, I want you to brush on this for me, because it sounds good coming from you. No, and this is a very simple thing, but it's, to me, maybe one of the most important things in this. Talk to me about us having the faith to understand that we're going to get the things and the skills and the leadership to be able to do these things. That this knowledge will be provided to us, because I think that's a big deal. A lot of people just get nervous and don't see a way. There's so many bad things happening, especially the young people, I think.
Yeah.
And I've talked to other parents where they just say, I'm up against it. They've got too many bad influences. So tell me about just having faith and knowing that you'll be provided for
Sure.
in that manner.
One of the big ideas, maybe the big idea of the book, is 2 Peter tells us that God gives us everything we need for life and godliness.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe with all my heart that includes being a dad, right? That's part of life. That's part of the thing we're called to do. So what that has meant to me, and Rich, I'll be completely honest, I wish I had understood this when my kids were 5,
Mm-hmm.
and I was trying to make it all work on my own. I understand it far better now at 55. But there is a wellspring within us, right? If you're a person of faith, if you have a relationship with God, there is a source of these things that we need that come in us, that then we become a conduit of God's love, of God's grace, of God's peace, of God's joy, of all these things. They come to us in a world that does not provide it. Again, I can't speak for you, but I know that my job doesn't have a lot of joy and peace in it, right? We find some around them, but for the most part, we got to get this stuff done. There's 9,000 students to take care of. But I have a source of that I can use to help me be joyful, peaceful, to be thankful, to be loving in the midst of a world that doesn't really afford me the opportunity to be that. So what that means for me is that I lean into that relationship with God. Okay. And out of that relationship, get the things I need, that I can then lean into those things in my relationship with my kids. And still, my oldest is 29. It'll be 30 later this year, 29 to 21. So my kids are young adults, but I still have the opportunity, the responsibility to model those things for them. It looks different now because they don't live in my house.
Right.
But I want them to see that when people are unkind to me, I can still choose to be kind to them. When people are grumpy, I can still choose to be joyful. But again, I don't wake up every day feeling that. So I've got to continue to tap into this thing that I have, this relationship, this resource that I have, to build that in me so that I can then help build that in them.
Okay. All right. Very, very good. I want to branch off a little bit here now to get you to talk about this same thing, but let's talk about from you. Yeah. Talk to me about what you do professionally. I'm interested in how you interact and what influence you're able to, put forth towards to the young people in your schooling and your college. Talk to me about higher education, and then kind of ease off into, I think you have a publication, was it College and Unpacked? Kind of bring that into the back of it too, because I think that's understanding you're dealing. It's obvious anybody that's listening that you're doing a good job with the young adults, and I'm used to dealing in a population of young adults that aren't doing so well, and what I try to tell people is that you'd be surprised how much, I wouldn't say little effort you have to do, but just some direction helps. So talk to me about what you can do at the school and what you're seeing, and
Sure.
a little bit about that.
So as a dean, I don't have a lot of direct influence on student or direct interaction with students anymore. Typically, if they come see me, it's not their best day because
Uh-huh.
something's gone wrong and they're either having problems or they've run into something that they need help with. But I do have the ability to influence the people who do work with students. And
Mm-hmm.
so my role is to create an environment and a culture for my faculty to help our students accomplish whatever it is they're trying to accomplish. And one of the things we're seeing, and you're seeing it, I'm sure, students are far less prepared at 18 or 19 years old to be a part of the world than they were when I was 18 or 19 years old.
Yes.
And that's not to say that I had it together, but I had it more together than they
Mhm.
seem to have now.
Mhm.
And there's lots of reasons for that, I think. But so we are running into this generation of students who are less prepared academically, but also socially and in terms of
Mhm.
mental health and all these other things. I
Right.
have students, Rich, who will walk in my office and can't look me in the eye, can't ask me a question, that are just terrified to be talking to an adult. And I
Mhm.
don't think I'm terribly intimidating or scary. I think I'm pretty relaxed and groovy, but it's still just this thing of they've got to come talk to somebody. So a lot of what we do is just provide encouragement and provide resources and cheerlead. I've got some fantastic faculty who are just incredibly gifted at letting students know that the thing they want to accomplish is possible.
Okay.
It may
Very.
take work. It
Mhm.
may take more than they think it's going to take. It usually does take more than they think it's going to take, but that it is possible. It's doable, and
Yes.
we not only believe in them, but we intentionally resource our students. Again, we're open enrollment. That means anybody can enroll in one of our classes, and they do. We're in a large urban metropolitan area, so we have lots of students from every racial, economic, demographic you can imagine in a classroom together. So trying to figure out how to help that student who went to the A+ high school and they're in great shape, and the student who dropped out of high school 15 years ago, got their GED, and now they're coming back because they want to move on in their life, their academic journey. Figuring out how to help all of those students in all those ways is a challenge, but it is something we love to do. And so my favorite thing is when I get to coach faculty, they come in and say, I have no idea what to do with this. And we
Okay.
get to talk about, well, okay, what about this? Or have you tried this? Or what resources can we wrap around these students to help them be successful? But that's my work, and it's
Mhm.
my passion. It's my mission. I've been in higher ed almost 20 years now. And
Okay.
man, I love working with these students who aren't quite there, but who we believe absolutely can get there. So that's where the book came from. And you mentioned College Unpacked, and I appreciate
Yeah.
that. In
Yeah.
in working with students in all these years, what I've recognized is students struggle not because they're not smart, not
Mhm.
because they're not capable, but a lot of times because they're not prepared. And higher education is complicated. It's far more complicated than it needs to be, but I'm not in charge of that.
Right.
I just am in charge of helping them navigate. So I wrote the book with all the information that I think I have about the system. And it's everything from how do you decide where to go to school, through what happens, how to have a great first week of class, how to interact with faculty, what do you do when something goes wrong? You have a problem with a roommate, or you get accused of academic misconduct, or you fail a class. Like, how do you navigate those kinds of things in the college space? And there's also a chapter for parents, because when your kid goes from high school student living in your house to college student, even if they're still living in your house,
Mhm.
it's a different child. It's a
Yes.
different dynamic. And
Yes.
so how to navigate just all of those kinds of, what do you do when you go on a college visit? What do you do when you show up for parents weekend and they want to go hang out with their friends and not you? How do you deal with that?
I see.
Um,
Yeah.
so it's those kinds of things. Cause again, my mission is to help these students be ready, be successful, and accomplish the things that they can accomplish. And every resource that I can put in their hands to do that, I want to do it.
Okay. All right. All right. Jay, before we get out of here, I want to go back to a couple of things about you. Talk to me. I've had a number of guests, and I love talking about this. Talk to me about the music. You said you were in a band. What did you play? I'm always interested in that. I really am.
So I grew up a musician. I played brass instruments in band when I was in high school. I have played in church bands and worship bands and different kinds of things throughout life. I don't do that anymore. I just don't have time for it in the way that I used to. But
Mhm.
um, really, if there's an instrument you can think of, I've probably played it, except for drums. I do not have the whatever it is to be able to move all four limbs at the same time. That is not in me. But I play guitar, I play piano, again, all the brass instruments, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so that's always just been a fun
Okay.
thing I've been able to mess around with.
So you don't just play an instrument, you're musical. And I think there's a difference between that. You don't just play an instrument, you've got a feel for music in general.
That's fair, yeah.
Oh, that's good to know. Jay, listen, I want to tell everybody where you see this podcast, you'll see in the comments. I'm going to load you up with the things about Jay. Oh, I forgot to ask you. Talk to me real quick before we get out of here about the book club. You're in a book club?
The Bookcast, my podcast.
Bookcast? Yeah, talk to me real quick about that, and I'll put it in the comments. I don't have a thing for it, but I want to hear people hear about it because I thought that was interesting. Go ahead.
So the Okie Bookcast it's my podcast. We've been running for almost 5 years now, and I interview authors connected to the state of Oklahoma, where I live.
Okay.
It's a place where people don't always think about great literature coming from, but we have American and International Book Award winners. We have million copy bestsellers. There are a lot of people who are from Oklahoma that would surprise you to find out they're from Oklahoma. So I love having these conversations and shining a spotlight on big authors whose names people know and lots of independent authors who people have never heard of. And then I also get to, I mentioned my daughter who's a writer. Once a month, we do a book chat show where we talk about what we're reading and why we love it and why other people might love it too. And you can find all that at okiebookcast.com. So there's the link that you can put your notes.
Okay. Good. What kind of what genre does your daughter write in?
So she is a horror / thriller writer. She's also writing some romance stuff, which is very different. But yeah, my sorority girl daughter writes kind of scary stuff, but it's great. It's fun stuff.
Oh, that is great. Jay, I want to thank you for coming on. Again, I pound this into the table, but the best recovery is prevention. And if you are dealing with a young adult, or even younger than that, just take a look and get some information. Get Jay's book, and just sprinkle what you can in, how you can in, and add some little bit of faith and some intentionality to that, and do the best you can, because what the little teeny bits that you do in this area will multiply. Those efforts will multiply greatly, because when we wait for the back end to try to help, it's messy. It's messy for those of us who are dealing in that back end. It's messy, and you realize that if just a little bit was thrown in the beginning, this will be a whole lot more easier. So I want to thank you and people like yourself. Everybody, remember to check out those notes in this, because I think it's important that you look in some of these things, and I'll give you some information to get in touch with Jay, maybe if you need to. And again, thank you for coming.
Great stuff. Thanks for having me, Rich.
All right. So for myself and Jay, I want to tell everybody as we leave, just remember to get out there and help somebody get better, help somebody stay better, and most importantly, get out there and help somebody be better. Thank you. Okay.